So one of the things I get asked the most is, what is your favorite piece in your horror collection? Or sometimes the question is phrased of, if your house is on fire, what's the one thing you're grabbing? And my usual answer is, I don't even know where to begin. But I get asked it pretty often, so I figured why not take the day and try to answer that question. I'm going to try to narrow it down to 5, which is pretty difficult to do, but giving just one wouldn't be much of a video. So today I'm going to give you my 5 favorite pieces in my horror collection with a little bit of a story or nostalgia feelings about it with getting them purchased and why I purchased it, and when I look at it, what does it make me think of, that sort of thing. So without further ado, guys, I'm going to attempt to do the top 5 pieces in my horror collection. The first piece I've got to show is this. This is what started my horror collection. So right when I met my wife, she knew I loved Halloween 3. I would talk about this film all the time, and this was back in 2011 or 12. Well, all of a sudden, she shows me that she got me this mask, which I was blown away at the fact that somebody made this. This was way before Trick or Treat Studios was either a thing or well before they even attempted to do something like this. This would have been unheard of at the time. And she says, I found this website called Silver Champagne Novelties, which I thought was a great name because it's a play off of Silver Shamrock Novelties. Come to find out, it was Sean Clark's company, which he was working in conjunction with Tommy Lee Wallace, which is why his autograph is embroidered in the latex here. So I thought this was stunningly cool, and she got me this for a birthday present. I wasn't collecting horror memorabilia or replicas at the time, so when she got me this literally started my addiction of masks, busts, and props and things like that with collecting horror, and it kickstarted a lot of things. So this has to be in there because it started it all. Not too long after that, I managed to snag this. Now, the interesting thing about this, and this doesn't count as number 4, this is still part of number 5, this was the very last one Sean Clark ever made. I purchased this in 2012, and I remember he said, hey, I'm going to honor your order, but I've got to shut the site down. The reason he was shutting the site down is because he was working on the Halloween 35th anniversary Blu-ray set and getting that convention done with Jamie Lee Curtis, and his time was very taken up with all that. So he had to shut the site down and just move on. But I got the very last one he ever made. So it's got the tag on it. Very special. So I love this witch, and I think that these are probably still the best looking ones you could get. No disrespect to Trick or Treat Studios, but this is a boutique thing with Tommy Lee Wallace involved in the making of them. So you're damn right these look awesome. So these are sentimental to me, with the skeleton being super special because it started my collection of horror. The next question I get asked a lot is, what's the most fun thing to collect? What should I get into? And I always like to tell people there's nothing more fun than collecting Friday the 13th. It is the most fun thing in the world getting Friday the 13th props. And one of my favorite busts ever has to be my Jason Voorhees from Friday the 13th Part 3. I remember when I found this, I had finally fallen in love with the Jason Part 3 bust. I'm very picky with this entry. There's a lot of great ones out there, and no disrespect to the artists, they're all very, very talented, but there was just this X factor that I couldn't find on the one that I really wanted. Well, finally, I found this one. It might have been, I can't remember the name of the studio, but I'll put it in post. The name of the studio is still in my mind, but I'll put it in post because it's the nicest one I ever saw, and I fell in love with it. So this is my Part 3 bust that I got with the most creepy skin tone ever. It looks so realistic, but this thing is amazing. So this Part 3 stands among the giants of my horror collection in terms of just quality, and one of the best ones ever. This thing is a beast, and I love it to death. This Part 3 bust is pretty undeniable. It's massive, it's on a wooden base, and it is a monster. So I love it. And from the side, it looks creepy as hell, too. So my Part 3 bust is one of my favorites. Absolutely love this thing. All right, so I think it's time for a light sentimental story. So I'll never forget having this conversation with my wife one time. We had just started dating, probably 7 or 8 months into the relationship, and I was so fully immersed in horror. And I remember we were watching Jason Takes Manhattan, and I remember sitting there telling her, I was like, one day I'm going to have the Jason Takes Manhattan bust that is the one that I just need. It's going to be this beautiful Jason Takes Manhattan bust. We're going to be chilling in our home one day, relaxing, eating dinner, watching horror movies, and I'll be able to go into my horror room and see that beautiful Jason Takes Manhattan bust. I was deep in school, studying my ass off, not making much money because I had a low-paying job while I was in school, and I just remembered one day I need to make this happen. I'm going to make this happen. I was determined to make this a reality. And so I remember a year or so later, my parents got me one for Christmas. And it was a nice one, but it was nothing to write home about. And I was just waiting to find that one. Well, I remember a year or so ago, the Devil's Latex put one out, and I said, that's it. And I scraped and saved and made sure I had enough money to get this at the time. And sure enough, I finally got it. And it's a staple, and it reminds me of having a dream, having a goal, as silly as it sounds. Wanting a Jason bust. That's a goal? I know it sounds silly, but it was my goal to have this because this movie is so special to me. I finally got the Jason Takes Manhattan bust I always wanted, and it is all disgusting and gooey, and there's nothing like it. This is a mask Pizzal made for me, and there it is. And this thing is everything to me. The cool thing is, I remember I told him I want a Jason Takes Manhattan mask, but I want it to be a little bit brighter gold. I want it to really shine on the bust, and he did it for me. So this thing is among my favorite pieces in my collection, and it's a reminder every time I look at it that I had a goal of wanting something, and I was going to work to get it, and I did. So every time I see this thing, it's a reminder that I did it. So I love my Jason Takes Manhattan bust. So another thing I really love is behind me, and you can't really see it, so we're going to go to some B-roll footage. You guys know I love A Nightmare on Elm Street, and I think about some of my favorite pieces I have. Well, the horror movie that started it all for me, I've told the story a number of times, was Freddy's Revenge. And shout out to a good buddy of mine named Sean. He hit me up one day and said, I've got a guy that used to be involved with video stores in the 80s, and he has some video store displays. He's got one you need. And that was the Freddy's Revenge video store standee. This thing is jaw-droppingly awesome. This video store standee is absolutely everything to me that I love about the Elm Street franchise. Evil Freddy, media home entertainment, a beautiful, tall, creepy cutout of the greatest villain in horror movie history as far as I'm concerned. The Nightmare on Elm Street Part 2 video display. When I got this, it was a dream come true. It's one of those holy grail items that I've always wanted, and boy oh boy do I just love this thing with all of my heart. The video store display piece is among my favorite things in my collection. Okay guys, so for number one, we're going to be going back to Elm Street. I want to give a shout out to everybody that's ever contributed or wanted to send me a little something here or there to make that Elm Street wall become what it really is today. That Elm Street wall happened by some sort of accident almost. When I redesigned the horror room a few years ago, I wasn't necessarily intending on making it that, but it naturally happened because I love this franchise. I've had friends like Dave Vanderhoff make me a gorgeous tombstone that's Freddy Krueger inspired. I've had friends like Gabe and my buddy Ben Grimm make the Max FX Freddy happen back there to become part of the Elm Street Museum. But there's one thing that has a story that makes me very proud that I made this happen. Rewind back to 2017. Me and my wife were getting married, and I'll never forget, she went on eBay one time and saw this listing for a baby Freddy replica. She knew I loved The Dream Child, and she knew I loved everything about that movie, especially that nasty baby back there. And I remember we just getting married, and we were going to be coming into a little bit of money from wedding gifts. You know, we didn't really ask for stuff. We just asked for money. And we were going to talk about getting it. She was kind enough that she knew I really wanted it. She was fine with us taking some wedding money and putting up a little bit of our own to make that baby Freddy a reality back there. Well, unfortunately, by the time everything came to where we were going to try to go grab it on eBay, that listing was gone. I was devastated. I would check eBay periodically throughout the next year or so, waiting for it to come back on, and it wouldn't. I kind of gave up, but I kind of had an emergency fund ready, just in the event that it ever popped up again. Well, fast forward to post-pandemic. One night I'm sitting at home where somebody messages me and says, "Yo, dude, you won't believe this. Look at this on eBay." And sure enough, it was that baby Freddy. I wasn't exactly ready at the time to grab it, but I knew that it was something that I made a goal to get, and I was going to make it happen. I pulled the trigger on that baby Freddy and had a conversation with David Miller himself after I purchased it, just to talk to him about the specs, how long it would be made, and things like that. And I remember telling David my story. He said he was really busy at the time and pulled it off of eBay because he wouldn't be able to make them, and so he was glad that I stuck around and I was able to get the one now. So it's cool to have that prop that I said to myself out loud, "Universe, I'm going to have a baby Freddy." What a weird thing to be a dream, right? But hey, I love that Elm Street franchise, and having that baby Freddy is without a doubt my favorite piece of my collection. So the baby Freddy is going to come in at number 1. But the thing is this, guys, when you ask me what's my favorite pieces in my collection, it's the stuff that has the most sentimental value to me. It's the memories. When I look at that skeleton mask from Halloween 3 up there, I remember my wife gifting me this thing that birthed the love of my horror room and collecting horror. When I look at my Part 3 Jason, it's determination that said I was going to find the best Part 3 bust I could find. When I look at that baby Freddy, I think about my wife wanting to sacrifice getting other stuff for the house that we could have used to get me a baby Freddy instead because she knew I loved it. And that's what makes the horror room special. So when you ask me, what should I get into the stuff that you really love. Get into the stuff and movies that have gotten you through hard times. Collect stuff that is a part of your identity. Stuff that answers the call to your DNA in a sense. Because every time you go into your horror room and you're surrounded by the movies that you genuinely love, you're building a room based out of love and not just trying to make the room look as cool as possible. I can't say that there may be a whole lot of horror rooms that have Part 5 posters back there with baby Freddy's in front of them. But that's me. That's what I love. So when I come in here, I feel like I'm at home. And I don't feel like I'm in some kind of room that's just made to look cool. That's what I recommend you doing. Find the stuff that you truly love, make goals, and make it happen. It won't happen overnight, but if you're determined, your horror room will happen, and you'll be really proud of it. So thank you guys for watching this video. Thanks for everybody that's ever asked what's my favorite horror collectible, and we'll see you guys in the next video. Take care, and keep those goals and dreams alive. Thank you to all my supporters on Patreon. To get behind-the-scenes photos, videos, and music, you can subscribe to my Patreon for as little as $1 a month.